Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Hello, welcome to The Long Road. My name is Chris Roberts. If anybody had watched the city's website or Facebook or even read in the Keene Sentinel, you would know that there was a protest to call for the ending of the killing of women, children in the Gaza Strip and other areas. They were vocal. We had some people behind them that were saying, "Shut up, go home," saying rude comments. And the mayor decided that he would call recess, and then he would have the individuals clear out. I spoke to the individual leader, and I says, "You guys have a right to stay here. So if you sit down, you can still hold up your signs, but you got to be quiet. You can't be disruptive, because we have a meeting going on. There's a public hearing on the proposed budget. So there's protocols that you have to go." They were able to hold it about 15 minutes, and then they got up and got vocal, and they had to leave. It's one of these things. One of the things great about America is that you're allowed to protest. They wanted the city to come out and say against it. The city, the mayor and the city council basically said no. They had taken a letter from the group under it. Basically, you just take it under advisement and you file it away, and it's really never brought up again. But going back to protesting, okay, in the 1960s, there was a group of people, even Jonathan Daniels from Keene, who decided the only way things were going to change if they started protesting. Well, they started protesting. Some got beat up. Some went to jail. Some got bit by German Shepherd police dogs. And some were even killed. Okay, they were protesting Jim Crow laws and racial discrimination down in the South. They kept at it and at it. Excuse me. So there were changes. We still need to make more changes, but they were changes made. There was improvement in the quality of life of a lot of black people in the South. But there are pockets and towns of just poor people with very poor education, and the states don't want to do anything about it. Then around 68, 69, you had the Democratic Convention in Chicago. Abby Hoffman and others were arrested. Some went on to trial for the protest. And they continue to protest and continue to protest. What happened? President Johnson decided he wasn't going to run for re-election, and President Nixon came, so it was Nixon and Humphrey. Nixon wins. The protests keep continuing, and Nixon goes and says, we have enough, and basically decided, yep, we're not supporting Vietnam anymore. We're going to have a drawdown. So about 4 or 5 years ago, when George Floyd was killed, okay, the police officer was rightly convicted and is spending time in jail. Unfortunately, he was stabbed while he was in jail. I don't know what his current status is. But then we had protesters around the country with Black Lives Matter. In certain places, they were genuine protesting. They were saying things are wrong, things have to change. The bad part about it, some of the people that led Black Lives Matter, they didn't give a crap about most of the black people. They just gave a crap. Their number one priority was making money, buying some property, and all this other kind of stuff in the wealthy area. 4 years later, who are they? People don't even know them. They don't go out. But the Black Lives Matter protest made some significant changes. It went way overboard with the DEI, diversity, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. And there were laws passed around the country, what you could teach, what you couldn't teach, banning books. And then a number of people got well-paying jobs. Basically, diversity, DEI experts, they were got jobs in colleges, businesses, and everything. And it went to the thing and saying, well, everything is white privilege. And you can't say this and you can't say that. People were getting fired. People weren't getting, for example, university was saying, we need a paper on what you think about DEI. Medical schools were saying, before we decide we're going to accept you, we want to make sure you're in the DEI. Okay, yes. Blacks have been screwed over for a couple of 100 years. In a lot of places, they're still getting screwed over. One of the places is if you live in the city, you got crappy schools. You got unqualified teachers. You're not getting good education. I don't see many people getting up and protesting about that. I don't see many people getting up and protesting and go, hey, maybe half the graduating class can't read past an 8th grade level. So there's a whole bunch of things. But protesting has made major differences in the course of history. Protesting has given people civil rights. Protesting has given women the ability to get divorced. They didn't have to stay in abusive marriages. They could get their own credit cards. They can get their own checking accounts. They can go to business school. They can do a whole bunch of stuff that their mothers could not do. And so protest ended the Vietnam War. So protesters, if they have a genuine goal and are not hijacked by a few people for personal benefit, gratification, things like that, work, and they're important. Hey, Boston Tea Party was a protest. There was protesting for the Stamp Act. There was protesting Shays' Rebellion because they going to have to pay taxes on their whiskey. Protesting is the right, and protesting could have the benefit. These individuals who are protesting, and other ones in college, graduates and others, they're facing the same thing as most protesters have to do, where people tell them, sit down, shut up, go home, or whatever. And because the great majority of people want the status quo, and what's happening really has no effect on them. Hey, if blacks were getting lynched in Alabama, and I live in Wyoming or Massachusetts, Vermont, I could go, yeah, it's pretty bad, but it's going to be easily forgotten. For example, there was a tornado last week that killed a whole bunch of people. Where was the tornado? It's quickly forgotten. It happens, you find out about it, you say, so sad. So these protesters are not protesting, or not, they're not, there are some, there's a difference. Are you pro-Hamas? If you're pro-Hamas and you're protesting for Hamas, you are protesting support a terrorist organization that has killed a lot of people, continues to attack Israel, and really care less about the Palestinians, because the Palestinians, like one of them, the leader of the Hamas, said 2 days ago, you know, the more people get killed, the more beneficial it could be to us. So if you're out there protesting Hamas, you're protesting a group that cares less about people, care less about women and children and the elderly. They just look at them as a number that helps their cause. And so, but then you got the majority of the people who are protesting. They're protesting to stop the killing. They want to cease fire to stop the killing of Palestinian children and women and the elderly. Because in war, civilians usually suffer the worst. The winning side gets to go home and celebrates their victory. The losing side, they get to go home to a desolate, destroyed place. And technically, even though it's questionable under the land of warfare, the law of land warfare, killing women and children and old people is really beneficial to the war effort. Great Britain under Churchill, we took care of India. Over 2 million people starved to death, but we put that down. If we go to the Irish famine, where a lot of Irish people came to the United States to escape the famine, the famine was man-made. England was taking the food from Ireland back to England for the English people to eat. because they thought the Irish people were less than human. And so, can you just think? You're here, you're working your farm and everything, you're getting ready, you're making food that you can make sure your family is well fed, and you can sell and make money and buy seeds for next year. The British soldiers come up to your farm and they say, we want all that food, we want your livestock and everything loaded up on ships and sent to Great Britain. Tens of thousands of people died. We said, you know what? We're going to do a bombing campaign against Dresden during World War II. So instead of dropping regular bombs, we dropped incendiary bombs, and basically the estimate was that we burned about 250,000 men, women, and children to death because we set the city on fire. We did the same thing in Tokyo. Tokyo had a lot of shacks and everything, so we firebombed them. Then later on, we used the nuclear weapons. It is easy to do that. We've done it to the Native Americans. What you do is you make the people less than human. Plain and simple. Hey, drop the bomb, and incendiary, we killed 250 combatants or non-combatants. No one has a name, no one nothing, and you get to do that. Civilian leaders, military leaders, even like, for example, the My Lai massacre killing over 100 people. It wasn't the only one in Vietnam, but in every single case, it's less than human. We say there are other ones. You can put, some of the politically incorrect stuff. Hey, the Japs became Nips. The Germans came Krauts. The Vietnamese, can't remember the. So they never became people. Okay? So when we talk about the Palestinians, if you go and look at the papers and the reporting and everything, it's always Palestinians, always Palestinians. Now you're starting to see and talk, and you may see a mother at the morgue with 2 or 3 of her children, or a father carrying his dead baby. Now what's happening is you're creating these people as people, and when they become people, now there's a connection. You can go in and say, wait a minute, that's a kindergarten. I live near a school, and I can't believe that, hey, all the kids in Wheelock School from kindergarten to 5th grade have been killed in over 8 months. It's like, no, you can't comprehend it. And so the connection is being developed. And when that connection is being developed, that's what a lot of the people are protesting. They're not protesting against Israel. They're not protesting against Hamas. They're not supporting Israel, and they're not supporting Hamas. What they want to do is stop the killing of the men, women, and children and elderly in Gaza. That's what they want. And they have a right to do that. Of course, you got to expect, in some cases, you're going to get arrested. Some cases, you're going to be handled pretty brutally. some cases, like the some of these people who donate to the colleges have said, hey, I want a list of everybody that was protesting because I want to make sure they never work in my firm. When you protest, there's risk. And if the people are willing to accept the risk while they're protesting, then you know it's real. It means something to them. It meant something to Jonathan Daniels. Jonathan Daniels never had to go down south. But Jonathan Daniels got killed while protecting a young girl's life. And so people have the right to protest. And in some cases, like I said earlier, protesting in support of Hamas, to me, is just plain wrong. And I would do nothing at all to encourage or support that from happening, to continue. And let me get this window address. I went looking up. Keene right now is down to a little bit more than 22,000 people. And of that 22,000 people, we live in 37 something square miles. Okay? To give you an example, Gaza is 41 square kilometers. And so we did the conversion. And basically, Keene is about 96 square kilometers. Okay? Keene is almost 2.5 times bigger. No, let's see, 100. They're about 150 times bigger than the Gaza Strip. And in the Gaza Strip, Keene is 96.7. And so just think. So we got 22,000 here in Keene. And even to double with Keene, just think of taking the whole population of New Hampshire, about 1.4 million, and say, we're going to put all those people within the boundaries of the city of Keene. To me, that's really incomprehensible. Then we're going to limit what amount of food that goes in. We're going to limit availability to water. We're going to limit medical, whole bunch of stuff. And now you're going to have cholera. You're going to have typhoid. A whole bunch of diseases that will happen. Tuberculosis is start breaking out. And as I was looking through the stuff, what are we going to do? And the part do we as taxpayers fund what's going on? Well, in a way, yes, we're paying both sides. We're funding Israel, but so far we've done about $650 billion worth of aid for the Palestinians, but the amount of that aid getting back to the Palestinians is pretty limited. The one of the things that goes on, depending on what your side it is, if you're on this side, you go, those numbers that have been killed are bogus numbers. And if you're on this side, we're saying no. And so you've got Israel, you got Hamas, and you get the Palestinian health system. And so numbers come and numbers go, numbers get double counted, and the health ministry said the number of women and people 17 and younger who are fully identified for the month of October, the first was 6,745. Me, I would question that number, and the reason I question that number is because when I took the statistics class, the professor said, never trust the 0 and never trust the 5. As of April 30th, the list was 34,622 had died in war. The AP analysis was based on the 22,961 individuals fully identified at the time by the health ministry with name, gender, age, and Israeli issued identification numbers. The ministry said 9,940 of the dead, 29 of the April 30th, were not listed in the data because they remain unidentified. Those include bodies not claimed by families, decomposed beyond recognition, or whose records were lost in Israel raids or hospitals. So basically at the end of April, AP News, they went in and they could definitely go and research and come up with the 22,961 based on the proper identification. And 994, the bodies were badly beat up or whatever. They couldn't find any records to show them. And then 1,699 were incomplete and 22 were duplicates, and they were limited by the AP analysis. By sure, the war's death toll is the highest of any previous Israel-Palestinian conflict. But the Israel leaders say the international media and United Nations has cited Palestine figures without a critical eye. Israel last month angrily criticized the UN use of data from the Hamas media office of propaganda of the military group. Well, I wouldn't trust anything that comes out of Hamas, because in war, there's always propaganda. In war, you got to get into the minds of your enemies, and you got to get into the minds of the people because you want them to support your side and not the other side. Israel foreign minister came out on platform X, and it stated anyone who relies on fake data from a terrorist organization in order to promote blood libels against Israel is anti-Semitic and supports terrorism. See, we go back and forth. So I'm told, if I go and say, wait a minute, I think those figures from Hamas are somewhat accurate, not completely accurate. The foreign minister of Israel says I support terrorists and I'm anti-Semitic. No, it has nothing to do with that. But this is one of the things with propaganda goes, and you have to worry about what you say, when you say it, who you say it to, because you end up coming and saying something, then you have to spend a whole bunch of time really defending yourself. But what we're going in, this is the foreign minister says, if you believe that you support terrorists and you're anti-Semitic, that wins people on some side, that loses people on the other side. AP's examination report found flaws in the Palestinian record-keeping at Gaza hospital system collapsed in December and June. The ministry had relied on hard to verify media reports to register new deaths. In March, report included 531 individuals who were counted twice, and many of the deaths were self-reported by families instead of health officials. Epstein, the Washington Institute researchers said using different data collection methodology and to combine them, all the numbers give an accurate picture. Correct. It does give an accurate picture because you really kind of need one source, because if I'm a family and my house gets killed, I may have to bury my family over here, but I should be going to the health ministry with their identification numbers and all that kind of stuff to get registered. You should not saying, hey, I had 3 sons killed today, and someone at the health ministry just writes it down. That's no verification. The number of Hamas militants killed in the fighting is also unclear. Hamas has closely guarded this information. A top Hamas leader told the AP in late April that they lost no more than 20% of its fighters. That would be roughly 6,000 fighters based on Israel's pre-war estimate. So Israel said before the war started, Hamas was about 30,000 strong. But when Israel goes, Israel is saying that basically about 15,000 Hamas people were killed. And so when we go to the methodology, if 15,000 Hamas were killed, but 22,000 have been verified by the AP based on the records and everything. We don't know if the Hamas numbers are in there, because the Hamas may want to keep those numbers down because they don't want to have Israel know what their military strength is. So it's a propaganda game on both sides, plain and simple. Hamas doesn't want to tell Israel how many of them soldiers got killed. Hamas likes the number of individuals going up because they know it puts Israel in a bad sight. Okay, for example, part of the way it turns, Hamas was really excited because Israel goes to attack to rescue hostages. Israel rescued 4 hostages, and in that rescue attempt, 247 Palestinians were killed. The vast majority were non-combatants. Yes, without question, a number of them were Hamas soldiers. we're not going to know. Because I don't think Israel has any idea to know which person is Hamas and which isn't, because some people are going to go and tell people I'm Hamas, and other people say, I'm not going to do that because I could be taken out with a rocket. So it is a tough battle. And what happened, plain and simple, like I stated before, the leader Hamas is kind of like the leaders of Black Lives Matters. He lives in a luxury palace, basically accommodations. He gets great food. He has a toilet. He has drinking water. He has all that stuff. And he's staying in Gutter. I think it's Gutter. So where he's safe, because it would be extremely bold of Israel to try to take him out in a foreign country. While the Palestinians are getting killed, this Palestine, the Gaza Strip is getting destroyed. It's not going to have any place for people to live because there's no more infrastructure, there's no more buildings, and bingo. So Israel right now has had 299 soldiers killed. But the other part is, the longer this war goes, the longer Israel's economy suffers. Because a lot of the soldiers in Israel are reservists. Kind of like when we went to Iraq and Afghanistan, we called up all these National Guard and reservists and sent them overseas. Okay, basically we took every single one of these people in National Guard and reserve units, we took them from jobs and sent them overseas. So if we took 50,000 people, reservists and National Guard members, and send them overseas, that's 50,000 people who are not working, okay, not making money, not spending. So what happened with Israel is the same thing. A lot of the people that are in the combat positions and stuff are reservists, and it's sucking out the Israeli economy. So what we're going to do in this, no one is going to win. Plain and simple, the Palestinian people are going to suffer, and the Israeli people are going to suffer. And more protests in Israel is happening because the people are looking, what's the long-range plan on this? But it comes down to, if I'm the leader of Hamas, I need this war to keep going. If I'm Prime Minister Netanyahu, I need this war to keep going, because we have ultra-right individuals in power. And Netanyahu does not have enough people in his party to vote for him. So he had to give an awful lot of power to the small group of people that, with his party and their few votes, gave him the ability to be prime minister. A couple of these people that are in his party hate Palestinians. They want Palestinians out of the West Bank and Israel take it. And they want the Gazans to be, the ones in Gaza, to be relocated in some other country. Well, if Netanyahu wants to stay in power, he has to listen to these people, because if they withdraw their support, there would have to be another election, and Netanyahu would be long gone. And then Netanyahu, like former President Trump, could be facing some prison time. So it is such a complex thing, but it's going around two narcissistic, power-hungry people. The leader of Hamas and Netanyahu, because he's not going to get reelected because unbelievable leadership failure on the October 7th attack. It was no different than on 9/11. When we go back and we have people look at on 9/11, we had so many warnings. The Israeli intelligence had so many warnings, and they did nothing. We did nothing. What did we get in return? We got 9/11, and we got 20 years of war. And so both of these things were preventable. And like in most wars, the non-combatant element, women, children, and elderly, usually suffered the price. And that's what most of the protests is about. Who's going to protect those individuals from the two narcissists? I don't know. Here it is. To wrap it up, if Israel has been, as said, Hamas has only 30,000 people, and they're not even close to being well trained as the Israelis. They don't have the Israeli armor. They don't have the Israeli intelligence. They don't have the Israeli aircraft, all this other kind of stuff. It's been 8 months, going on 9 months. Why is this war still going on? Why hasn't Israel won this war? Okay, in the end, Israel will no longer be viewed as invincible by members in the region. And that is going to cost Israel a serious price because of Netanyahu's and his intelligent people that work intelligence, failed to do their job, and they allowed October 7th to happen. A couple of months ago, I was talking about the migrants, illegitimate aliens, all the different words that some are politically correct, some are not politically correct. And I had an epiphany, and I go, both sides want the migrants in here. And I go, they're just talking back and forth because it didn't make sense that the president could have limited the number of migrants that were coming in. He could have said, like he did the other day, soon as we'll get 2,500 asylum seekers, we'll process them, and then we'll allow 2,500 next day and the next day. That's really simple. So that would be about 80,000 a month, but it'd be controllable. And I go, why is the Republicans doing this? And why is the president saying I can't do anything? And I was going back, and it came to me. the supporters, the donors that support both sides wanted the migrants here. And so the Democrats were saying one thing, but a lot of Democrats were keeping quiet. The Republicans were saying some, but a lot of Republicans were keeping quiet. And as I kept reading more, I saw more of Democratic blogs and writing, conservative blogs and writing, Republican blogs and writing, even the federal government, Office of Budget Management and stuff, then the Treasury, and they started putting out reports and blogs and articles saying how these migrants were really good for the U.S. economy. And I go, really good? So they danced around this. They thought we were fools, and we're going, hey, you know what? The American people are not even going to, no big deal. Well, now, over 60, I think the last one was 62% want to send all the migrants back. And now some of these great writers and political people going, holy crap, how did that number get to 62%? They want to send all the migrants back. We've never had a number like that. Okay, but I think the American people are waking up. The American people understand they were played. This was, and the migrants or legal immigrants, that's what the official term is, or illegal aliens, have had effect. And not only that, as I kept on looking, where were most of the migrants going? Hey, say you put 200,000 migrants in New York. Hey, so it screws over New York, and New York has to come up with billions of dollars. But guess what? New York is always going to vote Democrat. Then it goes, Chicago, 85 to 100,000 migrants. No big deal. We can throw Chicago, hey, but Chicago's always going to vote Democrat. Denver, always going to vote Democrat. And I go and start looking. Yes, a bunch were sent to Florida. And then when there was about 400,000 that the federal government was flying in, but the federal government did not want to say where the people were going. The people were going to places that most of the majority that always voted Democrat. So those areas could be really pissed off, but I know it wasn't going to change anything. Very few of the migrants were going to states that could go either way. So it was kind of political. Then I was reading that 50% of all the farm workers in the United States 2 weeks ago were migrants that just came in. And then you look at the migrants at the slaughterhouse, the chicken process plants, things like that. And President Biden has claimed and enabled that the United States had the best economy in the world. Yes, the United States had the best economy in the world, because we're pumping over $1 trillion to $2 trillion a year. We're making that money and we're putting it in circulation, so that's keeping the numbers up. But the other one was, with the job market that the U.S. New York Times said historically high, it's historically high maybe by 10 to 20,000. No, it was about 200,000 people compared to year 2000. And it was a job-creating boom. But most of the employment growth is going to immigrants, both legal and illegal. The government household survey showed they were only 971,000 more U.S.-born Americans employed. In May 2024, compared to May 2019, prior to the pandemic, while the number of employed immigrants has increased by 3.2 million. So basically, since the 4 years ago compared with the pandemic, so the American-born, their job increased about 250,000 a year, where the number of immigrants, both legal and illegal, increased about 800,000 a year. Why? Because, and when we talk about the 3.2 million immigrants, both legal and illegal, because a lot of them were giving cards, right to work cards, while they're waiting for the embassy judge. But numbers were not given. But the number of unreported, under the table migrant labor has increased drastically. No set number. But if you take, this is how many migrants are, this is how many people from 16 to 65 that fit in the working range. You put these ones working and you say, wait a minute, we got a million more people. Where are they? Well, you're not going to have a million more teenagers or guys in their 20s just sitting around doing nothing. They're going to, like in New York, a lot of them do DoorDash and things like that. They're going to do a lot of the gig economy, and they'll be taken in. And while the labor force participation among these groups has roughly returned to pre-pandemic levels, the rate in 2024 remains at or near historical lows, related to other peaks in the business cycle. This is true even for United States-born men who are in their prime 25 to 54 age of working. And so, and what happened is the Congressional Budget Office said over the next 10 years, these migrants could add about $7 trillion to the GDP, because they're going to work, they're going to make some money, even though they may not have a lot, but they're still going to spend. But yes, a bunch of that money that they earn is going out of state into a new company, Walmart, a new country. Walmart and Western Union are making a killing as money is being sent back to other countries. Then others are arguing is, hey, this is great. The ones who are working are going to be paying Social Security. And they'll help keep Social Security a little bit stronger for maybe a year or two. So all these pundits and stuff like that, now this is really good that we've got all these migrants both legal and illegal in the country because it does financial. But it doesn't do financial for a lot of American people. And I don't want to be called a nemophobe or whatever that someone could say. If, for example, we have in Keene, where we are, housing is really expensive and all that kind of stuff, and 50 migrants are sent to Keene. Okay, where do you house them? If you can't find a place, does the city of Keene have to pick up and pay to house them in a hotel and stuff? Or do they compete for jobs and people hire them at a lower rate than they would hire normal? Who takes care of their medical costs? So then maybe the cost of housing goes up because there's a greater demand. Okay, but people don't want to have these discussions. If I was to, like I'm having the discussion, like I said, so right over here, if I have a discussion about a certain thing, I'm an anti-Semitic and supporter of Hamas, supporter of a terrorist group. I say about migrants, oh, you're a nemophobe. You just want to worry about Americans. And bingo. But the part right here, this really isn't about people. This is no different that we have been doing for years and years. When we get short of workers or the workers get too high of a pay, America goes out and gets mass immigration. We did it to Ireland, Germany, England, France. When we ran out of them, we decided, we made Italian white people, we made Croatia, Serbia, and we decided, yes, they're now white people, so we'll bring them into the United States to work. We constantly do that to bring in people to work at minimum wage, minimum work, to increase the wealth of a small group of people, of business. This isn't about the people, it's about profit and politics. And so that's it for today. See you next week.